2. This is the best part. There we go. All right. Hey, good evening, everyone. Dave Wilson, the Ring of Hire Show. Hey, listen, tonight, I always love doing a show like this and helping people and giving back. And, tonight I got Jason Risoli, right? Did I say that right, Jason?
Risoli.
All right, Risoli.
Yeah,
okay.
All good.
All right. We're going to talk with Jason tonight, and we're going to put him back to work, and we're going to learn a little about him in the human resource field. But we'll be right back after this video. Then we're going to get right into it.
Every time. I
know. I say the same thing. That sums up the show, everybody. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you can just end it right there. It's just awesome.
It hits, and it's always good, Jason. When I look up top here, and this is going to 6 different platforms all at once, and it's like all of them are lit up. So we're live on 6 different platforms, and we got our first comment in here. Yeah, I have to bring this up. Here we go.
Oh yeah.
Mr. Kenny, there he is. Looks so suave, debonair, sophisticated, stellar, scholarly, distinguished. Look at that.
I did it just for you, Kenny. I'm dressed to impress, man. Just to impress.
That's right. Hey, Jason, and it's funny, when I met Jason a couple weeks ago, I didn't realize we're only like about 35 minutes apart. So it's pretty cool knowing you're only 35 minutes that way.
We speak the same talk. Talk.
Hey, I'm going to get right into it tonight, because the main reason why is I want to help you on your search and what you're looking for. But why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little about Jason, about you?
Yeah, Jason Risoli, born and raised, been my whole life in New Jersey. Jersey boy, I would say. I like to, I'm very down to earth individual. Growing up, I always felt like I was a person that could, take 2 people and find a middle ground. And I always liked that, or be a matchmaker, right? I always had that instinctual ability, and that really gravitated me over, as I grew up, to seek a career in HR, because we kind of do that as a recruiter. You kind of make a match, or as an HR professional, you help facilitate employee relations issues sometimes. But I actually got really my background of what really drove me into HR was I went to an all boys Catholic high school in Central New Jersey.
Oh wow, where'd you go?
St. Joe's in Metuchen.
Oh, okay, St. Joe's.
So yep, and I was 45 minutes away from my house, and I used to drive to my father used to drive me. There was no bus service, and I spent all that. If I wasn't playing sports or extracurriculars there, I'd spend the afternoons in his HR office, and he was an HR personnel manager back in the day, and I got to experience HR firsthand in a Teamsters food distribution warehouse in the early 90s, and that was
that's a good setup, huh?
Yeah. Woo. So, and I said, wow, this is exciting. I really like this. I think I want to do this when I grow up for sure. And I went to college for it. And did my undergrad at Rider, did my graduate work at Rutgers. I actually did also some coursework at Rutgers Law School. To become a certified arbitrator, mediator, and negotiator. I had a couple internships, Canning USA back in the day. I also worked for an Amazon competitor back in the day called Baker and Taylor, who was a book distributor back when Amazon distributed books only. I worked for them a little bit. And, when I was going just about to start my master's degree, I had an opportunity to either go and do leadership development program at Ford, do an internship at Johnson & Johnson, or do a contract recruiting role at Lucent Technologies Bell Labs.
Oh, I know where Lucent.
Yeah, and telecom was a big deal back then. I think they lost a little steam over the years. But I decided to go with the telecom role. It enabled me to stay local. It paid more than Johnson & Johnson at the time.
Right.
And I was able to go and do my grad work at the same time. 2 months in, I got converted at a ridiculous amount of money, put it that way.
Right.
That telecom boom, they were paying recruiters, $150 an hour. And this is in the early 2000s. It was
right.
crazy money that was out there. And they converted me from a contract recruiter to a full-time W-2 recruiter.
Nice.
Within a couple months, though, the telecom bust happened, and I found myself in a spot where I realized I was going to be out of work pretty soon. There was an opening in labor relations and employee relations there, and I applied for it with no experience, just my master's, education that I was going for, and I was turned down. So what did I do? I didn't, they took the Jersey self of me, and I didn't sit back. I went over to the director's door and knocked on it, introduced myself, and sold myself. Kind of like what I'm doing here today, right?
I love it, right? Yeah, I love it.
Giving my story and telling you what I'm all about and why I deserve an opportunity. So I spent the next 30 minutes telling him, why I felt that I deserved a shot and how I would, be an asset to his department. He gave me an opportunity in the next, 3 years at Lucent. I helped negotiate first chair contracts, nationwide contracts with the IBEW, CWA. I spent time on the corporate jet with the CFO and the head of real estate, and that CFO, Frank D'Amelio, ended up going up to the CEO of Pfizer for several years afterwards. And so I spent my early 20s around people that were just huge inspirational leaders within the business world.
Right.
Got an amazing amount of experience, on how to work with leaders and C-suites and opportunities to be exposed to work that was well beyond my years, put it that way.
I can imagine the progression that you have to make when you started out, because I mean, looking at your LinkedIn, I always say a tree. You got nice 4 pages. I'm looking at this, I'm like, wow, what a lot of experience. And what I like about it is, I mean, you've been in that field for so long. Right. A lot of these words I don't understand, and that's not my job to understand them. But it's just amazing how you progress through all the years. You can see it and what you have accomplished there. To me, HR, you have to admit, HR has changed.
Yes.
Through the years.
And that was one of the things where when I was in labor relations at Lucent, I realized I was as specialized as I was probably going to pigeonhole myself into a position that, at the time I would have to go and relocate to Detroit to the big manufacturing Ford plants or, auto manufacturers or I'd be following my work around the country. And, I really did want to stay in New Jersey and now I have a family and roots here that I absolutely.
Well, you have a couple people that are saying, first of all, Maria says, hi, David and Jason. Hi, Maria. Yeah, I'm sure if you connect with Maria, she's a great connection, Maria.
Okay, great. I definitely will.
Let's see. Displaced New Yorker in Chicagoland. Because Kenny said, Jason, you still sound like a New Yorker.
Yeah.
And then displaced New Yorker in Chicagoland. Okay. And naturally, Howard Patrice. All right, those two will talk together all night.
There you go.
Jason, in your career as in HR, how important was, or how recruiting, I should say, because that's where you start out. How did that help you to begin your career into HR?
Well, I would say most HR professionals do start off in a recruiting function.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And I did too, right? It's that foot in the door. And yes, it is more of a salesmanship type of position.
Was it always like that though?
I do think it's very similar to how it used to be. There's two types of recruiters that I see. One is you have an agency recruiter who does volume recruiting, and then you have recruiters that do more sophisticated or niche recruiting. Okay. But either or, you have a set of requirements that you're looking to fill, and then you're trying to go search and find that person and then sell them on that opportunity. So but again, from that perspective, that's where you enter into the HR world of understanding the laws that you have to follow, the guidelines that you have to work within, the consequences sometimes of making, a poor hiring decision and how that affects turnover. Then you get into the compensation and benefits and wages that someone's looking for. So these are the types of things that get you into the aspect of HR in its totality. And that's where, again, it's a very fun role.
Right.
It's constantly going, like sales, right? It could be very fun as long as you're performing at a good level.
Well, you're changing people's lives.
It's very rewarding. Yes, it's absolutely rewarding when it comes to that. So there's no better feeling than being able to say, like, you got the job and I can't wait for you to start with us. Like, that's awesome to be able to make that match. Like I told
everybody before, what I feel about HR. They scare the hell out of me. So it's for me. But you change people's lives.
Yes.
You can make a difference, just as a recruiter too. But I feel in HR, I mean, when I looked up, it was so funny I wrote this down here. Where was it? Oh, here we go. HR responsibilities, right? So you look at it. Now I look at back in the day. So recruitment, administration, compensation, benefits, training, development, employee relations, performance management. The following includes some of the different responsibilities. My point is, that's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost everything. You might as well put safety in there. Well, you are. It's still safety.
I had that too.
It doesn't matter. Yep. It is safety. Yeah, it is.
I had a Pittsburgh Steelers Super Bowl champion that used to work for me.
Did you?
Reggie Garrett. I loved him. Love him. If you were ever to watch the show, probably wouldn't. But hey, Reggie. So
it is. Maria, super important. Sell them on the opportunity. 100%. Yep.
Absolutely.
But my point there is, there's so much responsibilities that HR is responsible for.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And then you get into the more strategic aspects of it. It's interesting. I used to get called the consigliere so that's how some of these leaders used to talk to me and appreciate me, because again, I'm not the number one, right? They're the number one that's in that position, but I'm that counsel to them. I'm that advisor that's helping them, that is, not just looking out for them for again, cross the T's, dot the I's legal aspect, but also saying, hey, the workforce and the culture's, shifting, or how do we have to change up the skills and abilities of our workforce in order to be competitive in the future. So I love operating in that space, and that's how HR works strategically nowadays.
Jason, so what area, what demographic area are you looking for work, or what are you open to? And I know New Jersey area, but I couldn't believe the distance that you go.
Yeah. I mean, I travel, I have nationwide. In my last role, I had a nationwide scope, international scope, even including Puerto Rico. And I had people all over the country that reported to me, that many of which I never even met before, because we mostly worked remote. But I traveled, all over the country. And I wear a tie to work every day. I used to too, Kenny. And I love it. I used to wear a tie to high school every day, Kenny.
I know. So. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you did that for years. Yes, you did. I will say that.
But as a hybrid role or a remote role would be optimal. But if an in-person role, as long as it's within a commutable distance to where I live, which is in Western New Jersey, Central New Jersey, 08551 is my zip code. I'm not afraid to share that.
Yeah, right.
But I'm open to any of those three options for sure. But travel, I'm fine with as well. I used to do it a lot for labor relations back in the day, and also recruiting. I used to recruit for the Midwest when I first started at Lucid. We did hiring fairs all over the Midwest, and so I'm used to that, and I'm fine with that as well.
When you look for work now, and we've talked about before, what do you look for in a company, Jason? I mean, you got so much experience as you do. You're no different than everybody what you're looking for, but what are you looking for in a company?
I'm really looking for a winning team. Like when I say by that is like, I've worked for an employer that has struggled for, well over a decade now. Right. And I've been in that kind of entrenched warfare with survival mode for a long time. And I did well, and my team did well. And we really corralled, and it really brought us close together. But I am looking for a company that has some good security behind it and a bright future ahead of it. And that's what and that's what I mean by a winning team. It's not the actual people, but it's the company and what the company offers product wise. So we always call that an employer of choice, right? So
Right.
I'm looking. I really would love to work for an employer of choice in their field or industry.
That's awesome. Maria says you have to keep an eye on the market and be ready to always reinvent yourself. And you know what? That reinvent yourself, that is so freaking true.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at Amazon and Sears. I mean, Amazon, used to be a book distributor only. They reinvented themselves. They expanded. Sears was they owned it through the catalog and never reinvented themselves. And now they're barely existing at all, at least from a retail perspective. So absolutely, I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more than that. 100% on that.
For that, I remember Kylie saying when she worked for Sears, a couple of people were like, wait a minute, that threw me off. All our Sears, everything around here is closed. I'm thinking, wow, they were still around for a long time.
Yep. Talk about a culture killer. Every party you go to, every place you go to, they're still in business. They're still and then having to explain that it's a culture killer, and it was a tough thing to overcome while being an HR professional working there for several years. But we did it. We worked through the employee engagement aspects of it, and we made sure we focused on the positives that we had.
That's awesome. What, Jason, the word, I don't know, I'd say ever since with COVID and all that is workplace culture. That word, workplace culture. I never heard of that back in the 90s. I never heard of something like that. What does that mean to someone in your position?
Yeah, it's the
you're creating a lot of it. I think HR creates
I use the word helps facilitate, right? We help facilitate that.
Right.
I know you like the word last time I was on. So it's making sure that people are bought in to the strategy. They're bought into the mission, the vision, and the goals of the organization. They believe in that, and that's what I think culture is about. Is that I always used to focus because I wasn't just always in HR at Sears. I actually was a general manager for a year, and I did 2 jobs at the same time. I was a field operations general manager that ran the whole entire Philadelphia market for Sears. I've had well over 100 reports that rolled up under me. While at the same time I was in HR, I did 2 jobs at the same time for a year. It was crazy, but I enjoyed it. But what I always focused my team on, both one in HR and one as a field operations manager, was we're one team. We have one goal. We have one objective, and that's what culture is about. It's making sure that everyone's bought into what we're there to do. Who we're there to serve. Whether it's a customer, what product we're standing behind, what value proposition that we have as an employer to our customers, to our employees, and also what value proposition we have with our products to our customers. That's how culture fits in, and making sure that, once you have all those engines, all the cylinders firing, you got a train behind you, man. You just got a lot of horsepower with a lot of people that are helping row or feed that engine. And that's what culture really is when that fire is really going, that's what culture is about.
That is. Kenny, Jason Risoli will find employment very soon. He's truly such a gem of a gentleman. Being a friend of mine and millions of shares, goodness. There we go. See, Kenny's always isn't he?
I always try and be positive. I've always wanted to do that, is make sure I'm positive. Everyone around me is enjoying life. That's what it's about.
You have to. Maria says today's approach should also be different. I truly believe that personal branding makes the difference between professionals on the market who gets hired. Yes. Yeah. And I believe, and I know you feel the same way, Jason, that video is just, I always say, I love video resume screening ever since with COVID and all that again, when it came out. And I like it because it shows some people don't get the roles because they'll walk out of there. Well, I didn't get it. I don't know why and all this, but if you're just looking at that piece of paper, the video just brings out so much more of you or anybody that comes on the show or anything. I hear keywords, that I look for. I know people are biased, and I say that all the time. They'll be biased when you walk in, to your room or anything like that. But video, I just think puts you out there, puts a sense of humor to you, which you smile a lot, so you're good to go.
well, you can't see a smile without video, right?
No,
so
that's true.
You can sense it, but you can't see it. So it's kind of like, watching television on radio before television was televisions back in the day. I mean, it's just night and day difference. And but one thing I'm going to kind of contradict you a little bit on is the in-person touch points are even more important. Like when when I go on an interview, or I always offer myself up for an in-person. If it's I'm more than happy to meet in person if you like. I don't pressure, but because that in-person connection is even stronger. Like if you and I were, if we were in studio together, I'm sure we'd have even more gelling together. Than we do over video. But without some sort of video, you lose a lot. You absolutely lose a lot without video, at least video.
And I really did. I wanted to ask you. I had a young lady at work that was asking, how do you tell somebody just starting out from school and everything that wants to get into HR? What do you need to do? What do you look for when you look at somebody that's just coming into the field, or even later on in their career? What's a good starting point for someone?
A good starting point, I would say, is one. And it's not just in HR. I'm going to generalize. Find a mentor. I mentor grad students at Rutgers University in New Jersey. It's my alma mater. I like to give back. And when it comes to that, and I'm glad they do have a mentorship program there. It gives them, that mentee, a foot in the door either into my company or helping them with how to get placed into a different company, things to do. So again, and it's not just in HR, but it's find a mentor in general. You could be a sales professional, you could be an operations professional, you could be a dancer. It doesn't matter. But having someone in your life that's a mentor to help you both personally and professionally is huge. And that's some of the things that I've wanted to try and do lately is be a mentor, share some of the personal development, professional development things that I've learned over the years. And then just making sure that you're working on your network, right? And that was a misstep that I actually did earlier on in my career. I found myself unemployed for a little bit when we had a recession in 2009, and I was just applying to jobs. I really, and I don't think LinkedIn was a big thing at that time yet. No. But I didn't use my network that I had created over the years. And now, that's one of the things that, like right now, David, you're exposing me to, countless people, and I really, really appreciate that. Yeah, but using that network in order to get access, and then the last thing I would say is professional, through that network, professional associations and other areas where you could be, you can connect with people, alumni associations and so forth. So, work the network through those, not just a LinkedIn and so forth.
LinkedIn, I've learned a lot with HR as I joined in HR groups. There's 3 of them I joined, and I actually like it. I get my posts and I see it, and I learn. I didn't follow groups that much, and I was like, wow, instead of connecting with people too, I like going into those groups because I learn everything they post. Some of them they get approved, so what they're putting in there, and I'm like, wow, this is pretty good information, and it's free.
Yeah, absolutely. And last thing when it comes to entering the HR field, don't feel like that role you're pigeonholed into. Again, just because you might be starting in recruiting doesn't mean you'll end in recruiting. Just because you start in benefits or compensation, again, take it as a foot in the door in some of these places. And you might like it, right? Going to college, how many students go to college with one thing in mind and then graduate with a different thing, a different degree. So, I kind of knew in the beginning like what I kind of wanted to do, and I think I'm an exception, not the rule. But things grow on you. Like I love compensation. I love working in that area because it brings out creativity, comp plans and total rewards, as well, as much as it's sometimes, no offense to people that in total rewards, benefits could be boring a little bit to me sometimes, but there's a lot of creativity that goes into that.
No, that's part of the responsibility also, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So like, I wouldn't want to spend every day in it, but when it comes to like building out comp plans and building out and designing and working with my total rewards directors or vice president that reported it into me on how to set up a plan that will be beneficial to the employees and that they'll like that's exciting. That brings out the creativity. And so there's absence of different parts of HR that you'll find that you'll enjoy. So
that is awesome.
Yeah.
Rob says that's what I need to do. How you doing, Rob? Rob's
in the house.
There he is. Maria says, I usually conduct my screenings around the resume. While the resume shows me that you can write, I love discovering the personality beyond the words. This is how you make sure you are bringing the right team members and the right team.
Yep. Hire for personality, train for skill, right? Isn't that what they say? So, a resume is the qualifications. You interview for personality, you train for the skill. that comes after the fact. So, I agree. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I've hired so many people that that their resume or their skill is amazing, but their personality is not, ends up being a bust,
Yep.
and then you hire people that have that basics of knowledge, the prerequisites for the job. Then they interview and the personality is astonishing. And then they end up being a superstar because as soon as you give them some guidance, some mentoring, some skill development in that area, they just take off.
I do. I love bringing new people on. I love bringing new people on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's the best part because you can just mold that team where you want to, Kenny's been throwing this up in here. Gents, I went to Fordham Preparatory School in the Bronx.
Love it.
I had to wear a tie at high school every day. Well, there we go, Kenny.
There you go.
And Rob says, hello, guys. Hey, Rob, we heard you in there. There he is. I talked to Rob today. He gave me a call. So one of my favorite questions, I don't know, for some reason, is if I had your friends inside here and you were outside, what would they tell me about you? What would they say about you as a person?
I'm genuine. I'm really genuine. I have the heart of a champ, when it comes to wanting to do the right thing. I always try and be positive. People that I work with, I would say, and I know it's not my friends, but it would go the same way, is trustworthy and honesty. I never sacrifice my values.
Nice.
So it's one thing that you have to, especially as an HR professional. But I really want genuinely the best for the people that are around me, even if it means it's somewhat of a sacrifice to myself, So again, I was impacted, and put out of work in May. But you know what? I left there knowing that I did my best in preparing my team in case one day came that I wasn't going to be there anymore. And as much as it stunk for me that I'm out of work, I really felt like I prepared them the best I could to take over, and take on the challenges that lie ahead. And I felt really, really good about that. So, relating that back kind of like to the Army, right?
Right.
You might be the drill instructor in boot camp. Yep. But you're preparing those soldiers for battle the best that you possibly can to send them in. And as much as you want to be there with them, at least that you did your best in preparing. So again, that's how I feel in life. Same could go with your kids, right? You want to make sure, and your friendships and so forth. You just want to try and make sure that you're doing the best that you can to make sure everyone gets the most out of life.
That's the thing with my dad. When you said something like that, I say, well, he prepared us boys, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. He was like, you're going. There was right out of high school. There was no college back then. He couldn't afford. We always said, Dad, why? He's like, well, you have to do something with you boys, but to put everybody in all the branches of the service. I mean, it's something to be proud of.
Yes.
And I always, you always thank for stuff like that. And but you're right. What I learned, I mean, going right into the military out of high school, things were different then compared to now. And I'll tell you, I always believe, I wish I could send everybody, get them there 2 years. Because when I was in Korea, it was always 2 years. You had to go to school. They had to go to school for college for 2 years. And in the military first for 2 years. And they went to college. And that just gave me a great foundation. I look back now, for what I'm doing now. And I appreciate everything. I have one person here that says, what about passion for what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't want to say it's the end all be all, right? But it is extremely important. You have to love what you do. You have to, you got to wake up and be able to say like, this is what I should be doing. And guess what? If you wake up and it's not, you don't feel that, then change it. This is where you get into that motivational stuff that you listen to on podcasts. Like, I know. If you don't feel healthy in the morning, then change it. Okay. If you don't feel like you're getting enough accomplished, then change it. All right. If life's tough, then good. Embrace it. Learn how to live a different life then. All right. Make it step by step. And again, that's where it goes back to maybe needing a mentor to help you, I like
that.
So
I don't hear much about that. Well, I guess it depends on the field. I've always believed on the job training. We talked about that before. To where you can train the person. You have the employees sometimes. You have them right there. You have them, but you need to invest. And part of HR responsibilities, a lot of it just kept going back to HR. The more I read about it, that's part of HR as education and training your employees. And I'm sure that's part that what you do, right? I mean,
It absolutely is, and it's what you do as HR. It's what you do as a manager or a leader. I always said my greatest accomplishment in my career has not been the
right.
things that I've been able to accomplish, performance goals or my title or something. And actually, the greatest accomplishment I've ever had is that I've never had someone resign under me.
Nice.
And I've had people. I've been a people manager for the better part of the last 20 years almost. Now I've had a couple that I've had a performance manage, and I've had a couple where there's been some impacts, right? Downsizing, job elimination. But I've worked for an employer that has struggled, like I said, that has struggled for over a decade. And then a lot of people just wanted to jump off the ship, the Titanic, as it was going down, as they would say about Sears. But I've never had someone that said, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to go work somewhere else or for somebody else. That has been my greatest accomplishment, because it means that they believe in me. It believes in the work that our team's doing. And it believes that they, and going back to that prior comment, it means that they have passion. They have passion about what they're doing and passion about, the goals that we're out to set and accomplish.
That makes sense. Kenny says, Jason, how close are you to New Jersey? MD Anderson Cancer Center has a campus there, maybe some opportunities.
I'm not sure where MD Anderson Cancer Center is, but I'm in New Jersey. I'm 35 minutes away from David. How about that?
Yeah, and Kenny, that was there. Yes, I was there for orthopedic. That's over Anderson campus. That's new. Kenny, I'm only about 15 minutes from there. That's where I'm at. Somebody else from LinkedIn. I am advertising. I have embraced the fact that it's a business of rejection. Well, you know what? Yeah. I know about you, but what is, Jason, what do you learn even now at this stage of your career? What do you learn about challenges of finding employment, or what do you, the positive? I think you just have to stay real positive. I know it's easy for people to say it, but I think that just plays a big role.
I'm gonna give it to you the same way that I've given many answers.
Right.
Life is a roller coaster. You ride the highs and you embrace and you weather the lows, right? And same thing when it comes to the job market. And same thing goes with being a business owner and an entrepreneur. I mean, you have a good sales month as an entrepreneur that owns a company, and then the next month it might be horrible, right. Or you hire, you might be a recruiter and you get 2 hires that week, and the next 2 weeks you get nothing. So, it same can go for anything. I mean, I get an interview or 2 interviews or recruiters that reach out, and then I might not hear back for a week or 2, So again, life's a roller coaster. It goes up, it goes down, and it's just, it'll all be good in the end, right?
Right.
It'll all work itself out. And in worst case scenario, you try and focus that, the things that are most important in your life, right? Your health, your family, making sure that you got a roof over your head and food on the table type of stuff. Are the necessities of life taken care of? All right. The other things will work themselves out.
They do. I think a lot of people, and I've been there. Listen, everybody's lost a job, and it's not a good feeling. But then again, when you, I don't know, if something changes, then when you start all that interviews and you're starting to get into the role of things, and you're getting better at each interview, and you didn't get the one that you just really thought you were going to have, and
I've had that several times.
and it hurts, it bites you, because you're like, wait a minute here. I'm like 4 interviews, and I'm like nothing. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's like, what did I do wrong? And you really, like I tell people when they call me, it's like, listen, you weren't chosen. I wish I don't know all the time the reasons. I really don't.
Yeah. Oh, it's very rare you get the feedback. Very rare you get the feedback.
I know just as much as you to say, listen, they didn't choose you. Why not? I have all this. And, and I get that. Maria says, I love your attitude. You have to ride the waves. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. As long as you don't give up, it's just going to be a matter of time till you reach out. And exactly, Maria, that's what I was trying to say. It turns around. Like, I have a couple people looking right now. They're really struggling. And it 6 months from now, I know they'll be working. I just know it, so, but you get to learn from that. One thing I wanted to ask you is, what have you learned, or even that you could share, like on LinkedIn, how you do your job search? Because usually you reach out to some pretty good people.
Oh yeah. So, in things in life, like I say, there's 3 types of people in life. There's people that, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this with you and Kylie the other week, but there's, and I tell this to my oldest is 16, and I tell it to him as well. I said, hey, there's people that watch things happen around them. there's people that sit back and complain about things that happen to them,
Right.
and there's people that make things happen in life. And I said, I've always wanted to try and be the third person, the person that makes things happen, makes my own destiny. So when it comes to that in the job search, and that's what I'm trying to relate this back to, is yeah, you apply to a job, or you see, and you have to go look for job openings, right? You don't you're not the one making openings. So yes, you have to go look for the opening. You have to apply to the opening. But then are you going to sit back and wait for someone to tell you if you got, you're going to get interviewed or not? Or are you going to go try and be proactive? Are you going to try and reach out to see if there's a connection in your network that works there? Or guess what? A lot of times there's not. And I'm going right to the person who might be the hiring manager or might be a leader in that organization.
I've talked to a couple of people.
I applied to a job. Yeah, I applied to a job. I'm interested. I would really appreciate if there's a way that I can get in front of a hiring manager or your recruiter to interview there. And guess what? I've gotten more interviews doing that than I have by applying to jobs and sitting back, for sure, because you just get lost in the mix. So I know it's a little aggressive, but it's also being that third person on that I just mentioned, the person that makes.
I agree 1,000 what you said, exactly. And I've said that before. And then some people say it's not the right thing to do. I was like, listen, I think you got to do what you believe is right. If you're not going to be pushy, but you can do it very professionally. It doesn't have to be long, and keep it short, keep it professional. Reach out to a friend and ask them how to write a message. What is a good message to write? How do I? They could reach out to anybody and just ask that question, and you'll have people tell you what to do, and they'll assist you.
Hey, you're rejected by every person you don't ask automatically. Right.
I like that. Yeah.
So at least if you ask, you have a 50-50 chance. Right. So, but every person you don't ask, you're automatically rejected. So, it's you gotta try and just make, and obviously you got to be respectful. You got to do it professionally, just like you said, David.
Right.
But like, for example, I follow people, I connect with people that are in that field that I'm looking for, in that industry or in that company that I'm looking for. And I saw one of them post the other day, and I'm not going to call out his name, but he posted a picture of himself on vacation and asked to his network, hey, does anyone know where this is? And I'm like, I have no idea. But guess what I did? I spent the next 45 minutes searching the internet of where that picture was located in the world. I found it.
Oh, you found it.
And I direct messaged him and I said, I said, this is where it is. It's a lovely place. I'd love to go visit there one time. And by the way, I applied to that associate director of HR role. I love an opportunity to interview for it. I love it. And that's what and just that was my in. And I spent 45 minutes finding that picture. Nobody else. I think one other person found that picture where it was located. But those are things that you got to do. Like you got to work and hustle for it.
To go. Marie says, "What's happening in the end with your applications?"
Sorry, what was that again?
What's happening in the end with your applications?
Oh, well, again, I would say for the most part, you get the polite rejection, right? Thanks, you've applied, but we've moved forward with someone else that's more qualified, better qualified, closer to match, blah blah blah. So, but you could see the amount of applicants in some of these jobs, because I'm looking for roles that are typically a director plus HR level, or VP or CHRO level, depending on the size of the company.
And that's what I wanted to ask you about the titles.
Thousands of people that have applied. So unless I, can really get it in with someone, and it doesn't happen, often, that I can make that, break that ground to get that inroad. My resume is probably getting lost with many others, and I'm sure I'm losing out to a lot of internals as well. Everyone, a company's going to post a job, even if they have someone, that's pre-identified internally that they want to promote. They're going to post it externally, and I'm sure that's happening often as well.
Jason, there's so many, and that was when you said about the job titles. Yeah. There's so many job titles in HR, starting off the generalists, and like you said, from legal. There's so many. What type of job titles would represent you and what you're looking for?
I've interviewed for CHRO roles or chief people officer roles. I know it's interchangeable nowadays, whether it's a chief HR officer or chief people officer. But I've also interviewed for vice president of HR roles, and those would be more generalized roles where they have multi facets of HR or many different subject matter experts of HR that report up to them. And then I've also applied to, senior director roles or vice president roles, director roles that specialize in like employee relations or P&L people in an organization. So those type of roles and then I've also applied to roles that are labor relations, which has been my specialty in the past. Being a specialized, I have not applied specifically to roles that are like vice president of talent, total rewards, or vice president of talent acquisition. I can do them. It's just not been my forte of what I've done over the, I've been a manager of people in those areas
for all the years,
and I have done them earlier in my career. But I am looking more towards the a leadership generalist type of function, like a VP of HR or a CHRO role, or again somewhere in an area that I really like to and excel within, which is employee relations and employee engagement and stuff like that.
Awesome. I have a question for you here. Is how do you deal with ghosting after a conversation with a recruiter or a hiring manager?
So, and I have reached out to some of them in the past. Okay. And you have to be utmost respectful, and come at it from an approach of looking for criticism in the most constructive manner. Right. So, you're sending an email. Typically I'm sending an email to them and saying, hey, if there's something that you could do to give me some critique of why I might not have been selected, or if there's anything I could have done better with the interview process, I greatly appreciate it. And also, if you don't feel comfortable necessarily talking to me or communicating and writing back to me, I would be more than happy just to pick up the phone. Again, I just want to make sure that I don't make this. If I did something wrong, I don't make the same mistake again in my interview, in my job search process. And really, it's genuine. And if they do get back in touch with you, okay, you have to exactly act like that. You cannot become defensive at all, right? You have to really take it as constructive criticism. And again, honestly, I've not yet had any recruiter tell me that I've done anything wrong. It's just that literally they found someone that had more skills in that industry or more experience. They were looking for someone that had a little bit more experience with private equity. They had an internal candidate that they selected. So the ones that have gone back to me, which is rare, have given me things that made me feel more comfortable in my own self.
Makes sense.
Okay, good. I'm doing the right thing. At least it just hasn't come yet. It's not that, I haven't got that role yet. So
nice.
I
think that answered the question there pretty good. That's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
Couple more here. Maria says again, I haven't had the chance to review your LinkedIn. However, you have to position yourself as an expert within your industry. Also, you will give them a glimpse and learning more about Jason. Yeah, I mean,
I'm open to, first thing I did when I before I opened up to the world that I'm open for work or open to work, I made sure I redid my resume. I had a couple people that I'm close with within the industry. One's an executive headhunter that actually placed me at Sears, and another one is a career consultant, and they helped critique my resume. And that was first thing I absolutely did before I went out and let everyone know I'm looking. But I'm still, things need to be tweaked. I'm always open to constructive, criticism or things that I need to do to change up that I might have a big misstep on. But what I always say, Dave, a piece of paper is a piece of paper. Just get me in the room or get me on camera and I'll sell myself. Just like I said about that director of labor relations role. When I was first at Lucid, I knocked on the door after they said no. I knocked on the door. I introduced myself and here I am. This is me. Just give me an opportunity to shine and I'll be there. Like I know I can, so
I'll take a little heat again for this one because every time I say it, people message me saying they don't think a resume is that important. Listen, I know people say, oh, well, they're expensive. Nope, they are not. There's all different ways to do it. There's the Fever app, or I think it's Fever or Fever, whatever you call it, right? There's a lady in there that I used for $80, and it was $120 with a cover letter, right?
Yep.
From the time that I did her, she had 4,000 reviews. Now, it was only $80. So I'm like, what do I got to lose?
Yeah.
I am not kidding you, Jason. As soon as I did that, that's how I landed my job now. As soon as I did that, by applying for jobs, the calls were coming. I still believe if you could just some people they need to put a little bit more effort into that resume.
Yeah.
It's you and match it with LinkedIn, like we've talked about before, that's important. And that's just my sense that I really believe. I know people say it's expensive, but it's expensive not to have it.
Yeah, I mean, again, $80 is a drop in the bucket when it comes to people looking for even if you're going for a job that's $40,000, what's 80 bucks on 40 grand?
That's what I mean. And if you're going to get calls, because I always listen when I do interview with people, if I will critique. I've had people. I've given my resume here. Take this as an example, just the format. Take it. And they've taken it and they've come back and said, thank you so much. So I'm honest with people as a recruiter. I'll say, listen, if you could change this a little bit, because I know the hiring manager is going to look at this and he's going to tear it up.
Yeah.
He's going to be like, but the wording, the spelling errors, that you're missing. And I didn't realize, man, on LinkedIn, they will call you out if it's spelled wrong. Whew.
Yep, absolutely. So, another thing about that $80 is, how much do you consider your time worth, right?
Yeah.
So, you're going to go work someplace. You're going to work there 8, 10, sometimes 12 hours a day. So, I mean, $80. I mean, do you want to be happy? You want to work for a company that you enjoy working at for one day, let alone 8 years or 10 years. I mean, my last employer was there for 12 years.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
So, $80 is nothing. I mean, it's an investment in yourself. I mean, people go to college, right? You go to college nowadays, it's $60,000 a year.
Exactly.
To get what? So you got students, spending $200,000 over 4 years, okay, to get a piece of paper, but you won't spend $80 to encapsulate your entire career.
I know.
So what's more important, that $200,000 certificate, degree, which I got 2 on my wall here, or an $80 thing that summarizes your entire self to sell yourself.
I've had 8 people go to her and 8 people get jobs.
Well, I love that.
And they're just like, and I'm not just saying
it. Give me your name. I'm all about it, seeing what the difference is, what she comes back with.
When you got 4,000 reviews and they're all good, you can't just make that up.
No,
and she's a backpacker. I won't forget that name. It's a backpacker, but I'll send you on there. But we got one more from Maria here. She says, also, sometimes we don't have the time to even read what you're writing. Everything is just a number game. Continue following up with messages. Try to create a more personal connection with them. And that personal connection is there again. I agree a lot with that. Just that word right there.
Yeah.
You can be nice. And people, if they're professional, I answer my messages. I'll answer them. Sometimes I don't if I know it's like a spam thing. But if somebody's asking me for advice, I give it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's one thing that I felt that I held back a little bit too much because I was so focused on my inner circle of folks that I was working with at the time that, and some of my mentees that, I mean, what am I holding back? I mean, there's so many people in the world that, and I don't want to kind of pump myself up or anything. Like I have things that I want to share, so same thing can go to chefs. Like, you got these famous chefs and stuff that they're sharing their recipes. Why? Because they know they're going to out hustle them, or they're going to, like it's like they want to share this. They want to, so getting back to your point and not getting astray is making sure that you are accessible to people and genuine with people. So they'll see right through that.
I got one more question for you on the job search. If you had to look back at your career right now, if one thing stands out to you, what would that be? Basically like a project or something maybe that you've done.
So, I would go back to like my at Sears and again, I'm going to try and hold back certain names, but I think people know who I'm talking about. But we didn't have a lot of money. We were a company that was losing money dramatically, to the point where people didn't get pay increases for 5+ years. Benefits were slashed. There was no 401k match for for over a decade. We were losing employees left and right. And as everyone knows, it costs twice as much to hire a new employee than it does to retain one. Right. So what I had to do, we didn't have money to even go out and do a comp analysis for several years. I personally met up and networked with my peers in the industry at many different companies, many Best Buy and Lowe's and LG Electronics, a lot of the major companies within the industry that did what we did. And we information shared. We shared information around our benefits, around our compensation. And when I came out from, and I did internal analysis, a lot of data analysis with my team on our retention, turnover, and on our recruiting and hiring. And I came up with a proposal of an investment that we needed to make into our comp and benefits, that would at least get us closer to market benchmark of what the industry was going rate. And I was able to map that to, when I say I had a team that worked for me as well, like we. Okay, I was able to map that to an estimated improved retention rate and a savings. We implemented that in October of 2022, and needless to say that the investment did not go over well with the ownership of Sears, but they realized that it was an absolute need. Like we couldn't survive without it. Right. The investment was approved. I made the pitch with the CEO of the company to the ownership, which was private equity owned. It was approved. And from October of 2022 to when I left in May of 2023, there was a 65% improvement in our retention rate for those related turnover reasons for benefits and compensation. And, I was very, very proud of that. There's a lot of work that went into it, a lot of analysis, a big risk, multi-million-dollar investment into these areas. And again, it panned out. Now I haven't really tried to find out how if it's continuing throughout the summer to keep on improving, but I'm sure it is. And I'm very proud of the work that we did on that throughout last year. There's many other things that I've done, and there's been my missteps. I've had missteps too in my career, and guess what? You learn from them, right? So
yeah, I kick myself a lot. I'm always kicking myself. What did I do? But you know what? As we said before, as you evolve, things, you just grow and you learn. And I just think it comes down to the experience. I want to thank you so much, Jason. It takes a lot. Some people I always try to invite on the show to do an open interview, and it takes a lot. And I want to thank you for coming on. I think I
love being on the show, David.
You're coming back. We're going to come back, but I want you to, if you could just introduce yourself one more time, what you're looking for, what area, and this is what it's about.
My name's Jason Risoli. I'm from New Jersey. I live in the western central part of New Jersey. Looking for a senior leadership type of role in human resources or labor relations or employee relations, director of HR plus level role. Industry, I'm agnostic to, honestly. I've worked across so many different industries, and quite honestly, I think I can operate at a very high level in industries that I've never participated in my career. And again, I think the biggest asset that I could say is I love being a people manager. I love working with, senior leadership on solving problems, not just within an employee aspect of engaging employees, but also solving business and financial problems. I really, really operate at a strategic level from that perspective, and I enjoy working in that space. So I love an opportunity, and I love connecting people. Right. I love being around, connecting people and bringing out their best.
Well, we're going to have that coffee because we're only 35 minutes away.
Yeah, absolutely. Or a hike.
A hike. Yep. That's it. Right. Geez. So, but I want to thank you so much. And we're going to have you back on because I want to have you back on, do some shows on leadership and some other talk about. Another thing is I like to do with you is talk about retention.
Yeah.
Since that's a big subject of how to keep employees and how to just retain them. And I like how when you said about doing shows to show value, you want to give those people value and show you what you can do, because it really helps. When you can tell something, you're going to give that free advice. Like you said about a chef, you're giving that free, and people really like that stuff. They love it. Let's see. We got, thank you. All right.
Hey, Shuvik. I love, so just so you know, Shuvik is in India. So yeah, he's 11 hours ahead of us.
Is he?
There. Yeah, and I worked with him at Sears and love him to death. And if anyone has any openings for an HR professional in India, Shuvik's a guy. He's a guy. He's awesome guy.
That's awesome. And Maria says,
thank you so much, Maria. We're going to connect offline. Absolutely, Maria. Thank you.
Definitely. And then he's all the best. Yep, there he goes. All the best. You're the best. All right, sir. I will talk to you right after this video. I'm going to give you a calm one this time. All right. This one's a calmer one. All right.